everyone. Welcome to another edition of Blue Blood on the Main Line. I'm your host, Curtis Sumter, and today I'll be joined by one of the Villanova alums, one of its all-time great alums, Pryia Roy. What's up, Pryia? What's going on, brother?
Hey Kurt, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Just enjoying the holidays here in the home office. Enjoying ready to start this new year. And just wanted to get everybody together today and just talk a little bit about the NIL. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show to kind of speak more and touch on it at a high level. But first, I just want you just to introduce yourself to the fans and let everybody know who you are.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Let me just thank you, man. I'm so proud of you and your journey outside of Villanova. I think you're the same age I was when we first met, which is crazy to think about, right? And you've had a great career on the court in college, professionally, the work that you do at USA Basketball, your business experience with consulting and healthcare, and now in media with the podcast. Just truly proud of you, and really you're doing the work of a Villanovan by giving back, and that means so much to all of us. So really proud of you. But having said that, yeah, my Villanova journey, started, over 30 years ago. Believe it or not, even being 5'8" and an Indian American, I played basketball in New Jersey at Rahway, and obviously not good enough to play in college, play through high school, and then ended up at Villanova for the academics. At that time, in 1987, when I started Villanova, they had a program where you went to Villanova for a few years, and then you got into Georgetown Medical School if you had a certain GPA. And as you know, all my family's physicians, because my dad, immigrant family from India, my dad couldn't be a doctor because of financial situation. He wanted all his kids too. So I always wanted to be a lawyer, but I couldn't, being that obedient immigrant son, I couldn't tell him. So I ended up at Villanova in this program. And being a basketball nut, I'm living across the hall in Sullivan Hall with one of our great Villanova point guards, Kenny Wilson, who's from Jersey City, and he kind of takes me on under his wing as his little brother, and another classmate of his, Doug West, who I know you know really well.
Yes.
So those two guys become my friends, and playing pickup, and they're giving me all their gear. I really felt like a basketball player, and that was the first year that Coach Wright joined the staff. And I got to be friends with Coach Mass and his son, and the Villanova family. We went to the Elite Eight that year, had a great season, but my grades suffered. And my dad was like, "Man, you're coming home. I'm spending all this money for you to be a doctor." And we had that reckoning moment. And I said, "Dad, guess what? I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer." And he looked at me and he's like, "Well, why didn't you tell me this before?" And I'm like, "Because I didn't want to disappoint you." So I went back to Villanova my sophomore year, changed my major to English and history, did really well, and ended up becoming a lawyer. So that's where my Villanova journey started. From there, my basketball coach was a guy named Tom Lewis, and Tom's brother-in-law, believe it or not, is one of the all-time great high school coaches, Kevin Boyle, who I know you know really well. And he coached at St. Patrick's High School in Elizabeth, which is a few miles away from my hometown. So we had been friends for many years, and Kevin ended up taking the Montverde Academy job. At this point, I went to law school. I became a federal prosecutor for 20 years. I worked at Homeland Security as the assistant chief counsel. And Kevin wanted to come back to New Jersey once he joined Montverde and play games. So knowing the basketball nut that I was, he asked me to help. So we put together what's called the Metro Classic, and it's been in existence for over 10 years. And as you know, my passion is also giving back. So I said, "Kev, we do this, it's got to be bigger than basketball." So we actually partnered with Children's Hospital of New Jersey in Newark, and all the proceeds of the event went to the hospital. And during this whole process, being in Newark for 20 years, became a mentor to Randy, one of your classmates, became a member of his foundation board, and we did a lot of great stuff in the city, in Brick City, through his foundation. So that's long and short of it. That's what my Villanova journey taught me. And as you know, our motto is Veritas, Unitas, Caritas, truth, unity, and love. And that's what it's about.
I remember, forget what year it was, but just meeting you, and we had just like an instant connection. And it's been a bond that's been almost 20 years in counting. And even through me graduating, we still maintain a great relationship that's ultimately led to us working together now. It's something we talked about many years ago. It's hoping that one day we can get together, and it finally happened. I'm proud to
Yeah.
mention that the Siler Group is one of the sponsors of the show, and I actually host a podcast in the office in one of their conference rooms. They've given me tremendous amount of support with the show. So I can't thank you enough for helping to lead that as well.
Oh, no. We're very grateful that you're able to do this, and we want to encourage you and support you in any way we can. And you're doing a great service, Kurt. Not only talking about the stories and the tradition of Villanova basketball, but all the off-court stories and all the great alums and all the work that they've done inside and outside of basketball to really make this a better world. And I transitioned from being a federal prosecutor to now being a wealth manager and a lawyer for the Siler Group. And the world is kind of flipped, right? Because when you play, this brings us to NIL. You'd see your jersey being sold at the student center, and sold, made a lot of money for the university, but this wasn't something that you could benefit from. So what happened in June of 2021, there was a landmark case called NCAA versus Alston. And the Supreme Court decided that it was unfair for student athletes not to be able to profit on their name, image, and likeness. And that's where the acronym NIL comes from, name, image, and likeness. So it said that students could now utilize their name, image, and likeness to do autographs, to do promotions, to do modeling, to make personal appearances. With that, as long as they didn't use the marks known as trademarks of the university, and that would allow them to monetize their name, image, and likeness. So, based on that, 32 states out of 50 made their own individual rules pertaining to how athletes could profit from their name, image, and likeness in college. Then, believe it or not, a few months later, in 2021, over 22 states made their own high school NIL. So this is not something that just college athletes can benefit from. In high school, almost half the states allow high school athletes, again, as long as they're not using the marks of their school, to profit from name, image, and likeness. So you've seen the deals out there for some of these, high level players. Some range in the hundreds of thousands, some are even in seven figures. So it's really a new day in the world of being an athlete in high school and college in the U.S.
That's amazing. I mean, just in my era, this was something that you wished, you hoped for, that you thought you would never see happening. But you knew it was right. You knew that you were making money for other people. And it was unfair that you couldn't, obtain any of that. And for the most part, most of the kids who are playing these sports could use the money. Families could use the money, especially if their child, he or she, is good enough. It's the same. I compare being an athlete to other I compare being, we're using basketball, but compare it to, playing tennis as well. Like, there's no reason, at 14, if you're a good enough tennis player, you can go to academy, you can sign these deals, make money, or golf or anything like that. But yet, if you play basketball or football, you can't. But yet, you're signed to an institution and you're an employee of that institution, technically, not so much a student athlete, I think the term gets misconstrued. It's more of an employee, not, a student athlete, making the university hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. Some of that should get kicked back, I believe, to the student athletes. And it's just good to see that it's finally here.
Yeah, and to your point, there's been so much monetization by the NCAA, by the universities, from these athletes, and slowly the NCAA has changed and offered certain benefits to student athletes that it didn't do even when you were in school, such as disability insurance guarantees and things of that nature. But you're right, the show doesn't go on without the actors, in this case, the athletes. So
Yeah.
having them being able to earn income outside of their college play, I think is really important. It's really what we're about as a capitalist society, and I think that it's going to ultimately help everyone. I think what you're going to find as the process matures, that a lot of athletes will actually stay in college longer because of NIL, because they won't have to jump to the professional league for financial reasons. And only the best will leave early. And so, that level of financial stability is going to help both the college and the professional ranks.
So, so what does this mean now, especially in those 22 states? I mean, it's going to be difficult for guys who are in college, getting NIL deals. But how, how more? Let me get this out right. How much more of a challenge would it be for the kids in the 22 states as high schoolers? I mean, obviously it's 9 through 12. If the kid is that good in nine and he get NIL deals, and they're up to the hundreds of thousands, or sophomore. Like, what does that look like for the family? Like, what will they then now have to do in order to? Um, I mean, obviously it's going to be easy to accept, but to be able to manage that, like, what,
Yeah.
what does the landscape look like now for the families?
So I think whether you're in high school or in college, I think in high school, it's much more difficult to get NIL deals. So the only hyper elite, super elite athlete is going to have those opportunities, those mega opportunities. So maybe the top 10 player in a particular sport versus college. There's more colleges, there's more boosters out there, there's more collectives out there. So the range of benefits and opportunities for a college athlete is going to be much more than a high school athlete. But having said that, there's certain things that any NIL agreement and any parent or student should be aware of. And one is you cannot promote or endorse products that are of what we call socially unacceptable, like alcohol, gambling, cigarettes, things of that nature. Those are taboos and not allowed. The second thing is, especially if you're a high school athlete, you really want to be careful about the duration of the agreement, right? And so that's why they should seek outside counsel through a lawyer or a wealth manager, which is completely legal now based upon the NCAA ruling. When you were in school, you weren't allowed not only to get a team agent, but you couldn't even get a financial advisor as part of your team while you were in college. But now that's allowed. The Supreme Court's allowed it, the NCAA's allowed it. And why that's important is they can look over the deal from the player and the family's perspective to make sure it doesn't violate those social taboos that we just spoke about, to make sure the deals are not for long duration, because your image is something that you want to protect. If you commit to a particular brand or a particular product for long term, it's going to hamstring you maybe in the future if you're more successful. So duration of time is something to really be concerned about. The other thing is you cannot be paid for performance. In other words, you can't have a deal with Pepsi Cola. Let's use them for example. That you get paid X amount more if you score 20 points a game. So they cannot be performance based. They have to be based just on the service you're providing, a commercial or an interview, or something of that nature. Um, as I mentioned before, because you can't use the marks, the trademarks of the university or the high school, you have to basically representing yourself. And again, how do you want to represent yourself? So be careful about the products you're associated with. That's something that's very important, especially for a young person in high school, because you may not want to be a part of a brand, let's say, that is promoting, cryptocurrency, right? Because right now it's not very popular because of a lot of the issues involved in the financial aspects of that. So it's a process that you should really have someone with you helping you, a lawyer, a financial advisor, an accountant, to kind of cross those T's and dot those I's.
Oh, this is great. Like you just I had no idea. I would assume, that you wouldn't want to represent, like you said, some of those taboo things, especially still considered being somewhat of an amateur, or at least being under 21. You shouldn't be promoting drinking or gambling for that, for the most part. But just like you said, having an understanding of kids are now be able to start their business, their brand a lot sooner in life. And it's great. I think it gives the kids an opportunity to really grow, think outside the box, especially when you have a little financial security. Um, but like you said, like you're definitely gonna need some outside counseling because when you start getting these deals at a young age, and it's new money, and it's an abundance of money, it is good to, know what to do with it and how to do it. And like you said, looking over those contracts and not selling your soul, on a deal. Um, like you said, for example, cryptocurrency. It's not unpopular right now, but if they want to offer you $50,000 or $100,000, having the guts to say perhaps maybe no to
Yes.
certain deals, um, because like you said, you really want to protect your brand and build your brand. But those are some of the things that people, with wealth or celebrities go through all the time. They get presented with tons of opportunities, investments, and they have to say, hey, like, does this represent me? For the long run, this represents, my family, my beliefs, and not just, taking it solely on purpose
Right.
for the
And
dollar.
to that point, Curtis, one of the big aspects of having someone advocating for you and representing you in terms of financial literacy with NIL is teaching them, right? Because one of the things in the US we don't do is teach financial literacy in high school, even in college, unless you're majoring in business. And so this is a great opportunity for athletes and families to learn about budgets, to learn about taxes, right? Uh, the tax man's coming for you regardless of how much money you make. So a lot of athletes, they'll get that first check or and they'll just spend it all. Well, guess what? 30% of that's probably going to be subject to income tax. So if you make $1,000 on an NIL deal, and if you haven't saved 300 of it for taxes, well, you're in the hole now. And so we help kind of educate them, and this is a budget. Think about a budget in terms of now you're earning income. Why is it important, right? Why do you spend money on? What's your value system? So whether you're managing $1,000 or $100 million, it's really the same principles, right? It's your value system, what you want, what you need, and then all the other things that are outside. And having someone helping you through the process when you're a young person, when you become a professional, it becomes that much easier. I mean, I know you did it for years, right? For playing abroad. It's very complex. The foreign players doesn't have the benefit of a 401k, right? Doesn't have the benefit of a disability program. Doesn't have the benefit of a lot of things that the players here in the NBA do. So you really need an advocate for you on the financial side to protect you, to advise you, and to counsel you.
Definitely. Like you said, like when I was leaving school and had aspirations of NBA, my team that I was preparing was totally different than when I was, going to be going overseas. I had no team. It was all me, I had to learn and handle, my business on my own, essentially. Once the deal is done overseas, the agent get this cut, team get they cut, then boom, there it is. Like everything else is pretty much on you. You had to be responsible, understanding, taxes, and when, like you said, the tax man was coming and certain things, and it wasn't like no, oh, I have a financial advisor looking over this or the agent looking over this, and no, like it forced me to really be on top of things and making sure things were paid and other than my cell phone bill. I think at that age, the most thing you were responsible for was just paying your cell phone bill,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
and maybe your car insurance. That was it. But once you start making some money, it was like a whole different, group of responsibilities that couldn't rely on anybody else. And, just watching my parents and how they did it and how they just always talked about it, I felt like I had an understanding. But I would just, reach out to them and just double check and ask because my parents were, my mom worked in the financial industry before she got retired. She actually for about maybe just as long as I don't know, maybe over 40 years, a little bit before I
wow.
was born, between Goldman Sachs and BlackRock. So managing and sharing. So she understood what money was and tried to tell me about it and my dad. So when I was in that position, I felt like I had somewhat of an understanding, someone I can lean on.
Yeah, I remember we've had the conversations in the past. You remember that you told me that you had that ability, that extra help because of your mom's expertise. So she helped review the contract, your professional contracts, uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
and everyone doesn't have that, and
Yeah.
that's important. That's why it's important to have someone advocating for you, and have your best interest in light in light versus someone else because everyone uses this, you have to stay in your lane, right? So sometimes when you have a sports agent, their job is to get you on the team, right? And they do a great job with it, but they may not have the financial expertise, so you may need someone on the financial side who's equally just focusing on that aspect of it. You as a player are just focused on getting healthy, getting stronger, being the best athlete that you can be. And as you know, they only allow 510 of you guys to play in the NBA. So that's self-consuming. So you really need a great supportive team around you that's well balanced.
Yeah. I felt so comfortable during that time. Just like my mom could not speak to a contract. That's what lawyers can do. Lawyers can read that jargon. My mom looked at it and was like, I just don't know. But when it came to the financial part and the services, she was on top of that. She knew what money should be allocated, what money should not be allocated, what's worth spending money on, what's not worth spending money on, what percentages made sense, what percentages didn't make sense, and all that stuff. And I felt good because when you see the look on other people's faces when they recognize somebody who knows what they're talking about, you feel more protected. Like you say, yes, I'm glad I have that on my side. And I know that's what you're doing. Like you're trying to bring that to the table, to these young athletes and these kids. It's just a sense of just a peace of mind to know that you have someone here that's gonna make sure that you're not being taken advantage of. That your best interest and your family's best interest is at heart.
Yeah, no, I've been really fortunate. I left Homeland Security 3 years ago, and now working with the Seiler Group in wealth management. We manage over $2 billion worth of assets for a variety of clients, not just athletes. It's just we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have executives. We manage a few pension funds for a couple of unions, but the athlete practice just kind of grew. A lot faster. So about 80% of our assets under management are professional athletes in the three major sports, NFL, MLB, and the NBA. And as you know, I think the stat is something like 80% of professional athletes are broke after their professional careers are over. And to me, that is just something that we can't stand for anymore. Because The information's available. The rules are a lot more clear, and there's guidance available to everyone. But you have to take advantage of it.
Take
And
advantage of it.
but this hits a lot earlier. When you were in high school, you were just concerned about playing ball at Bishop Loughlin, right? And the next game and getting better and getting recruited and those kinds of things. Well, that player and that family that you were 30 years ago is bombarded with all this other stuff now too, as the coaches in college are and the universities are. So it's become very complex. So you really need experts helping you and guiding you. In the NIL space, yes, we have a lot of college clients, but quite frankly, they're not making a whole lot of money. But the reason we want to get involved is that financial literacy aspect. Because if we can teach them how to think when they're in their 20s, like they're in their 50s, then they're going to be successful beyond their sport. And that's really what it's about. It's about, creating generational wealth, especially in communities of color, who are not used to getting this kind of money all at once. An athlete's career is very short. Now your playing days, maybe your career is 5, 10 years. Well, guess what? Your professional non-athlete career is probably 40 years. What are you doing to plan for that? And these conversations need to start happening, believe it or not, on the high school level. And the universities are getting very good at this too. They're providing financial literacy, education to the players when they're recruited, when they come in, and also giving them the do's and don'ts, and giving them really good guidance. However, at the end of the day, they have their own interest, and the player and the family have interests sometimes may not always coincide with the university. That's why it's always good to have your own representation.
No, I absolutely. Definitely, just so both parties, like you have to have some kind of arbitration there. Like you said, both parties are gonna, might have different views. But you need to come together and find some kind of common ground. And you brought up a point in your soliloquy a little bit about just starting early, like in high school, the financial literacy, like learning, and also parents and kids, athletes, like not only just saying, okay, I have this, because I'm good now, I have access to people who might want to solicit me as a client and teach me, but I have to want to learn this on my own as well, because I'm gonna have people coming at me and throwing things at me. So I have to be knowledgeable as well. What are you doing? I know you do a lot, especially through your foundations and through the Metro Classic. Like, how are you helping with financial literacy with the high school kids?
So each year at the Metro Classic, which is a basketball showcase for as I was mentioning, some of the best teams in the country play, as well as the teams from the metropolitan area. We have a symposium, and we bring in all kinds of people to talk about different issues, financial literacy, drugs and alcohol, social media, mental health, race, all kinds of issues. But the financial literacy one has become very popular. And again, because these athletes and these families are being bombarded at an early age, yeah, it's great to get a NIL deal in high school, but you got to understand that there's state laws regulating that, right? So if you make the wrong decision or take the wrong deal, you could be ineligible and not be able to play in high school. Because remember, you cannot get paid to play. And that's a very, very subtle point. Because most people will be like, well, I can get paid for my name, image, and likeness. So I am getting paid to play. But you're only getting paid, you're only getting monetized without being associated with the high school or the college, right? That has to be that delineation. And there can be outside entities, but not the high school or the college giving you deals, such as collectives on the college level, and similar organizations are developing in the high school level as well. So we really have educational programs at the Metro to talk about these things, about budgets and taxes and duration of contracts, and so they can start getting their feet wet and comfortable with the terms, to learn what a stock is, right? To learn what a bond is, right? To learn what a mutual fund is, right? To learn what fixed income is. And believe it or not, people look at athletes as monolithic people. They're only great at the sport they do. No, they can be coached to do anything. So we want to coach you guys. You're already a superstar athletically. We want to make you a superstar financially, and you do that by just doing these basic things, right? On management of money and knowing what your values are, and knowing what leverage is, and all these different things. I mean, again, I'm so surprised that we don't have a full-time class on this. Just like you study history and science and art, this should be a requirement in all high schools.
We talked about this, what, 10, 11 years ago. Just
Yes.
if we could just have a room and just some desks, table and chairs, and our guys, when they're off playing and doing their thing, our guys, when in their off time, come and sit in that room, and we just have um just whoever there, just basically just giving them the information that they need on financial literacy,
Yeah.
myself, whoever, because that's how you make it in life. It's just like you said, learning how to budget, living within your means, preparing for the future, um, not day to day, week to week, month to month.
Yeah, with this whole movement of player empowerment, Kurt, I'm really proud to see what some of the players have done. Whether that's a LeBron James or a Kevin Durant, they've gone beyond their sport and they've become business people that have been successful beyond measure, right? And that's because they have a great team around them, but they also have become financial experts, right? And that's been a process. So imagine if you could start that process at a young age. And that's really what we're trying to do, is to accelerate that process and get and vetting these opportunities for these guys. Because remember, when you played, we didn't have time to discuss this, right? Like you were just so busy about the game and getting better. But if you had a team that, hey, let's look at this opportunity, right? Is it a good opportunity? Should we take stock options versus a upfront fee? Should we take product instead of an upfront fee? Should all these things are going to become second nature to you? So when you're in the conversations, negotiating your contract or negotiating your marketing deal, you're going to know what to ask, and also have your team there, but also know what's going on. And I think that's what LeBron and KD have really shown, is they've created these ancillary marketplaces, and they become amazingly successful.
So getting back to the high school stuff and college. So using me as an example, uh, who's going to approach me with an NIL deal? Is it going to be the university recruiting me, saying we have an NIL deal for you? Could it just be an outside entity just saying, hey, we saw you on YouTube. Here, find me a way, whether it's my DMs or something like that. Like, this is what we want to do. Like, how does that all transpire?
Well, it's
Does
funny you mentioned that. All of the above,
all
right?
the
All of
above,
the
right?
above. So the university is allowed, right, to have their own NIL deals for their players, and they're allowed to utilize the marks, the logos, and the colors and so forth. Um, Most of them are uniform deals, where meaning everyone gets the same amount. So there's one pot of NIL opportunity. The second, as you mentioned, yeah, somebody could reach out to you. I'm just throwing out McDonald's could reach out to you and say, "Hey, Kurt, we'd love for you to participate as one of our sponsors, and do a commercial for us." So that's an opportunity that you could take advantage of, that could come out to you independently. And then when you're at a university, universities have collectives, which are not controlled by the university, but they're usually fans of the university, people who are offering you opportunities to do charitable work, or to do some marketing work for them too. And that's another way, another bucket, if you will, of NIL opportunities. Or someone just DMing you directly and saying, "Hey, I own this local shoe place, and I would love, Curtis, if you could come down and tweet out or Instagram out, that we have the best shoes in town." And that's another way you could do it. All these things, when you're in college, has to go through your compliance office, right? So that all the contracts have to be reviewed by them and make sure that the T's are crossed and the dots are the I's are dotted, and there's no issues with gambling, alcohol and those taboos that we discussed earlier, right? And so, and the same thing on the high school level. There's that process to make sure everything is compliant. So it all has to be vetted.
Who would the high school kid go to?
Again, they come to them. And
No, I
remember,
mean, I'm sorry, as far as like compliance, because college you have that,
so right.
available.
So
Over the high school.
each high school has a state organization that has the rules for the do's and the don'ts for NIL.
Okay.
Additionally, a lot of high school, almost every high school of the 22 that we have right now that allow NIL also have compliance departments now. They've created them to help vet those opportunities so that it doesn't violate the high school, the state's NIL rules. And again, we'd encourage all athletes, high school or college, to have their own representation too. So, because remember, each lane is different and each priority is different. The high school's self-interest is different from the players and the college as well.
Yeah, man. This is big business. It's a new business. And it's like it's a lot of opportunity. It sounds like it's a lot of opportunity. Kids are able to just really, focus in on what they want to do now. Like, I feel like it's you can say I want to be a basketball player as a kid now, and it's actually a little bit easier. Not to say NBA, but be a basketball player and make money and successful. Like there's two different. Like it actually, it's a profession. It's a real legit profession now. I mean, let's not forget over 300 countries over here, but it just shows that with the NILs, I feel like with the NILs and kids being able to get money earlier and being paid and things of that nature, it's almost like it's almost a reflection based on because I feel like basketball is suffering here versus European basketball. That
Yes.
you know what I mean. So you have to get the kids here a little more engaged, like focused a
Yep.
little bit more and get more time when there's money involved and it's a job. Other things aren't as important, because you're handling your business, your job.
And,
Whereas the
and
kids over there, yeah.
yeah, Kurt, I think that's a great point that you make. You played in Europe, and you know that the kids there, soon as they're in high school age, they're professionals, and they can be signed to contracts, right?
14. And granted, it might be 1,200 a month, but that mindset, that security,
That professionalism.
um,
Yeah.
that professionalism is there. Even if, like, granted, kids are making this at six figures now and things of that nature, but let's just say, like, they don't even need six figures, right? Let's just say if you're a parent and you, as a 14, 15-year-old, 14, 15, still living at home, no, you bring it home, you're paying, because you could pay $1,000 a month rent. Granted, you still got two parents, maybe some brothers. Like you really like you're contributing to the household. You're really,
Yeah.
yes, and you don't have to worry about nothing. You got that security. Your parents understand what you're doing, so it's just a different freedom. Like you're not worried about things, and I just saw how kids were just not worried about the things that I was worried about at 14, 15, 16, 17. They were like, living my dream right now. I'm in practice right now, practicing with a professional team. I'm trying to get there, and that's all I'm focusing on. There's nothing else in the world that matters right now. I got enough money to eat. You know what I mean? If I want some
Yeah.
clothes, I got no, no. And again, not a lot of them. I got enough money for that, and I got some money to send home, and I'm good. You know what I mean?
I remember this. This reminds me of the story that you told me about one of the guys you used to play with and against, Lenny Cook, right?
Yeah, yeah,
How different potentially could Lenny's situation be today if he was a high school player, right? Because he would have been able to profit from his name, image, and likeness, and not be involved in some of the seedy and the unscrupulous people that got
yes.
associated with him when he was such a young person, right? And to that point, this is an opportunity with NIL and player empowerment to level the playing field and to help people at an early age. And I just think of Lenny and the story you told me, he could really benefit from this.
He could have hugely benefit from it as others, because like some of situations, like I don't, sometimes you can't fault people for doing some things based on situation and circumstances. And at the time, it was leverage for other people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? In a bad way. Making a chunk is a good thing, but it was more of a bad way because they had their own agenda behind it. It wasn't with true love and care behind
Yeah,
it.
you
There
know,
was a few. There was one particular, Debbie Bortner, who I'm just going to make sure I put her name out there, who everything she did, was with love and great intention. But I can't say that. And Mr. Green, Tyrone Green. Can't say that for everyone
yeah.
else.
And,
Um,
and like you said, it takes those deals in the shadows, NIL does, and eliminates that to a large degree, right?
mhm,
So now it's out in the open. And this is where you can really see, is this a valid opportunity or not? And then the family and the player makes the choice. Whereas before, everything was done in the back room, with a handshake and a wink wink. And let's face it, it caused a lot of people, hurt a lot of people in the
a
process.
lot
Not
of
just not
people,
just players and families, but also universities and programs.
yeah, a lot of reputations were damaged. Some probably deserving, most probably not. Just because of the way things were back then. Only a certain group of people were prosecuted if the deal got out. You know what I mean? Not everybody. Now it's just like it don't even matter if it's out. It's all good. Everything is fair now. So in that aspect, I like it. Players are not, their reputations are not going to be damaged the way they were before. So I think that's a good thing that comes from it. For sure.
No, I think you're right, and I think though, with opportunity also comes potential negatives. So you really have to be careful, and I think that's why having a good team around you from an early age is so important. And you know that just from a coaching aspect, that you know the coaches that coach you when you're younger and on the fundamentals, right, is your basis to springboard into greatness. So it's the same thing with financial literacy. It's the same thing with understanding that this is just the beginning. Financial literacy is not just something that's important while you play basketball. It's something that's important for the rest of your life. And determining what your values are is something that's important that you figure out and hone in on early. So whether that's starting a nonprofit or whether that's giving back to your community in other ways, these discussions need to be had at an earlier and earlier age. And I believe with NIL now, it allows those discussions to come to the forefront, not again in the dark back rooms, but in the light of day. And that's the thing is everyone has to be open to it. There's still this stigma somehow of athletes should just be playing for the fight song and all the accolades, and that should be good enough. but that's not reality. As you started the conversation, athletes in other sports, the individual sports, have been profiting for so long, and it's just a great chance for all the other team sports now in North America to benefit.
You said something about the collective.
Yeah.
Now you said it's more so a group of money that's equally distributed to the team.
No,
Would you
no,
still?
no.
Oh,
It's not necessarily equally distributive. The university can also have a straight NIL opportunity for their athletes.
okay,
That's usually equally distributed. It can also be changed depending on a particular player and what, but usually it is universally the same amount of money given to each player. The collective is not directly associated with the university. It's usually fans of the university, and they also have the option to distribute equally or unequally based upon whatever sponsorship program they have.
gotcha, gotcha. All right. That's some valuable, high level stuff right there. I definitely learned a lot from it. I'm sure the viewers would learn as much, or hopefully learn as much as I did. And this is really, really good stuff to see where our game is going, where it's at right now, and just how you know, the opportunity to grow earlier is being presented for us, and how we have to take advantage of it because it's here now. This is what we've been asking for a very, very long time, to not be taken advantage
Yeah.
of. Again, for our name, image, and likeness. I mean, it's
Yeah.
simple, and
It,
this is great. I mean, this is what what we say as Americans. We don't work for free, right?
you
We
know,
don't work for free.
just a corollary to that point, I gotta applaud the Villanova collective and Randy Foy and Ashley Howard are the heads of the Villanova Friends of Villanova collective, and they've done a tremendous job. Uh, you know, uh, not just getting opportunities for our players and our athletes, but also connecting them to charitable causes. That have been amazing. So it's not just compensating the athlete financially, but it's also giving back. And I think they've done a great job of using the collective as that vehicle to give back, and getting our guys are all about giving back anyway, but really showing that commitment to it. I remember when you were in school, you guys did so much stuff in Philadelphia with the Boys and Girls Club and different organizations. And having that ability to do it through NIL and the collectives is an important part of it. It's not just compensating the athlete, but it's also enriching the communities.
Oh, I mean, that you can't get anything without giving something, and you can give your time. I mean, if someone's going to invest in you, the least you can do is to give your time, especially to these charitable causes. That goes hand in hand with what Villanova stands for. So I completely see that. Um, is that just our collective, or is that what the collective is based on with all universities? Is an act of service that is given back from the athletes.
It can be both. I think ours focuses more on the service part, which I think is amazing. But I know they'll be providing other opportunities too. And I think that's the way it should be. I think it should be a hybrid model where they help get individual deals that benefit the player, but also deals that help nonprofits. Because that's at the end of the day, it is about giving back. Um,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and if I could, if I had my vote, um, I would say just only solicit those, where there's the opportunity to give back. It just feel like it's just more character. It just shows what we're really about. And you can't question it. Nothing was given for free. Um, and that's just how I feel like that's the Villanova way. You're not going to give us anything, without us, giving something back in return. So,
yeah, and I opened up with Veritas, Caritas, and Unitas, right? And that's what it's about. And whether you go into it understanding that, I certainly feel like when you leave Villanova, that comes with you. And that's in everything that we do as alums, and just really proud to be a part of that family that we all are, that Villanova family.
I can't tell you, Priya, I'm excited and I'm proud to be a part of that family as well. You're like a big brother, OG, a mentor, whatever you want to call it. So thankful and grateful for our relationship. Um, and I've learned so much from you, and I hope to continue to learn from you and continue to work with you on future endeavors. But this was a great show. Um, Probably my best show. I feel like I've learned more in this one show than I have in all the other shows as far as just the information. It's quite obviously was different than all the other shows, but it was necessary, especially for the way the trajectory of the landscape of college basketball athletics is going. So this was great. I hope to do more with you. And just again speak at a high level of certain things just to kind of keep everybody in tune as to what's really going on behind the scenes, because I'm sure people heard NIL. I hear people saying like, hey, what's NIL? What's NIL? And I have to say to myself, what are you talking about? And then I'm like, oh, NIL. So yes, people are illiterate to it, don't know what it is, what it means. So this was great. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Kurt. Again, I'm just so proud of you, and continue what you're doing, and I wish you continued success and good fortune. And I love talking with you today, and but I hope the next podcast about basketball and not all this financial stuff, because we'd love to talk about that. And
Yeah.
I can't wait for the rest of this year. I think we're going to have a tremendous season. And again, thanks for sharing the time with me, and go Cats.
Go Cats. Well, that's a wrap, everybody. Another show with Curtis Sumter and Pryia Roy. I hope everyone have happy holidays, and I hope everyone is off to a great start to the new year. Go Cats. God bless.